Today, I'm going to talk about an aging assassin who's brought out of retirement when criminals break into his home and take something that he can't replace. Wait, why am I being so vague? This can't possibly be the plot of two movies, right? Also, you've seen the title of the video probably. You almost assuredly know what's happening here. I'm reviewing one movie and comparing it to another popular movie slash series because I'm a jerk. Well, let's get started. Content warning. This review will contain blood, gore, violence, probably less blood and gore and violence than would be present in the actual situations, but there's still enough to make people uncomfortable. Also, there's some mild racism, toxic masculinity, and sexism. Viewer discretion is advised. This review will contain spoilers for Nobody and the odd reference to Breaking Bad. The film opens on Bob Odenkirk in handcuffs in a dark room, taking out a cat and tuna and smoking a cigarette. Two detectives ask, "Who are you?" To which you respond with the movie's title.
Me?
We transition to a montage of the man's everyday life, which is just aggressively banal. He's just an average guy. His week consists of the same Groundhog Day shit, just going out, working out some, going to work, forgetting to take out the trash, and going to bed with a literal wall of pillows between his wife and him. It's obvious that he's not happy. He's got a boring office job where he mindlessly enters in numbers. Oh god, this is sounding way too real. His routine is interrupted one night when he hears something downstairs. He checks in on his kids, both of which are still in bed. He creeps downstairs and finds two burglars going through his house. He grabs a golf club and is about to call the police when one of them finds him and points her gun at him. She demands his watch and any cash that he has, which, because this is 2021, he doesn't have any.
That's about all there is on that.
That's it?
I use a debit card.
Her partner is tackled by his son, distracting the gunwoman. She points her gun at his son, who has her accomplice in a headlock. Try saying that 5 times fast. The man stalks behind her and raises his golf club before letting it fall and insisting that her son let the other assailant go, who proceeds to punch his son in the face before they both book it. His son refuses help up and demands, "What the fuck, Dad?" This is the first instance of people emasculating him to one degree or another. When he is interviewed by cops about the break-in, one of the police asks him why he didn't do anything, and says that,
In the golf club? Did you even take a swing? You know, if that was my family...
The next day, his son is asking for help on a school project about the military, and is revealed that he was an auditor for the military, and that his wife's brother was a real soldier. His neighbor laments that they hadn't broken into his house because he could have used the exercise. He also has this really neat car that is obviously going to be stolen by the John Wick stand-in at some point. His brother-in-law, who he works with, gives him a gun and insists that he needs to protect his sister and kids after showing some astonishingly bad gun safety protocols.
Dave, so
Jesus! All right. Safety's on. No, wait. Oops. There, see? Now, there's nothing that turns out the lights right quick like a fucking bullet to the brain, man.
His father-in-law, the owner of the business that he works for, says that he probably did the best thing considering who he is. When in his office, he finds himself idly sketching the tattoo on the woman who robbed him, and he just cannot concentrate. He eventually gives up and opens a cabinet, revealing a two-way radio and a flask. Someone on the other end is playing music, and they talk like old friends. The old friend reveals that he is presumed dead, and that he knows about the events at the house. He inquires about the event for more details, and Hutch reveals but he recognized that the gun was in fact empty, and that he knew the exact make and model of the gun, that they were some just desperate people, and the voice on the other end reveals that now he understands.
Now I know why you didn't do what you didn't do.
We can see Hutch increasingly distraught with his failure to protect his family, and thus his failure as a man. He visits his father, David, played by Christopher Lloyd, who intuits something is wrong, but Hutch doesn't divulge what is happening. He arrives home sometime later, and his son is distant and barely responsive. His daughter says that she can't find her kitty cat bracelet and is very distraught, and it's possible that the thieves took it. This is the final straw. As a man, he can't let his daughter be without a kitty cat bracelet. Almost immediately after arriving home, Hutch leaves. He arrives at his father's retirement home again and takes some money and his father's expired FBI badge and goes hunting for the tattoo he spied on one of the thieves' arms. They realize that it's expired and they threaten to rob him for the money that he has.
I'm just a man who's looking for someone.
Yeah, well, you probably shouldn't flash cheese like that around here, bro.
He gives a long speech basically challenging them to do so.
There are three types of people who, as you say, flash cheese. People who don't know any better, people who are seeking to intimidate, and people like me who wish with every fiber of their being that someone would try to take it from them.
And some vet in the shop recognizes one of his own tattoos and fucking books it.
Thank you for your service.
You too, old-timer.
After seeing the fear in the vet's eyes, they give the information that Hutch needs. He breaks into the couple's house and takes his watch back and demands
The kitty cat bracelet.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfucker!
it looks like he's going to kill them, but then there's a cry. Turns out that the robbers have a child, and he can't kill them over a bracelet because that would ruin the sympathy that we might have built up for the man. So instead, he goes outside and punches the wall like a manly man who does manly things, like breaking your hands out of idiocy. But, to be fair, I've fractured my pinky as a result of losing my temper too. So, maybe I'm not one to throw stones. He gets back on the bus, upset that he couldn't get his revenge. As he is riding home, a large SUV crashes next to the bus and a bunch of drunk Russians pour out of it like they were cheap vodka. They invade the bus and start harassing some girl, which is by far the most realistic thing in the movie so far. Drunken assholes ruining the already shitty atmosphere of a bus by further invading people's space and generally being douchebags and cunts. Hutch decides he's had enough.
I'm gonna fuck you up.
And he lets loose. And shockingly, Bob Odenkirk can pull off the movie badass thing pretty well. He has enough stage presence, and they lean into the fighting style of a smaller guy pretty well. He's not all that invincible either. He does put them all in the hospital, though. One starts choking, and he gives him an emergency tracheotomy. Brings me back to watching House. Ah, classic. He gets home and his wife is there, wondering where he was. He confesses that he misses her and hates that they haven't fucked on the pillow wall she's created to hide from him.
We haven't embraced in far too long. We haven't shared a kiss in we haven't had sex in months. We haven't made love in years. You seem so far away.
This leads her to reconsider, and Ronald Reagan's it. By which I mean, she helps take down the wall. Not that she ignored an AIDS crisis, encouraged shitty economic processes that we are still struggling under to this day, or cut back on social programs and got countless people killed because of his conservative nonsense. Fuck Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan was the devil.
The next morning, he is very happy and cooking breakfast and genuinely enjoying life for what seems to be the first time in basically forever. He gets a call from the mysterious voice on the radio, and the man on the other end tells him that he fucked up, and that he better call Saul. Wait, fuck. He should see someone called the barber. Eventually, he reluctantly agrees and finds out that the person that he assaulted was the brother of a major player in the Russian mob, Yulian. Yulian is protecting something called the Ob Shack, which is basically most of the mob's money at the moment, and he is a really fun character. He sings, he dances, he murders people who give him the stink eye. A little later, I'm going to compare this movie heavily to John Wick, but Yulian is something that I think John Wick has no equivalent of. None of the villains are even half as fun as Yulian. They're all boring. Hutch makes dinner for his family, but it's interrupted by Yulian's men coming over unannounced. Presumably because they heard he was making lasagna, which is the best food. Hutch fights valiantly and takes a lot of them down, but he's eventually tasered and they stuff him into the trunk of a car. He manages to escape by dislocating his thumb, finding a fire extinguisher, and extinguishing the fire of their hearts by causing a car accident that would have surely done a fuck ton of damage to him himself. He also reveals his edgy backstory. TMCR.
I used to be what they call an auditor for those three-letter agencies. An auditor as in the last guy any organization wants to see at their door.
He was an auditor for the government and would be sent out to kill any dissidents, organizations, or whoever else.
So I used to make sure that there was no one left to him.
He says this to a dead man. It turns out that this is going to be a running gag. He calls his father on the way back, warning him that the business that he had is quickly spiraling out of control. He gets back home and forces his family to go somewhere else, then torches his house and steals the cool car his neighbor had been bragging about in the beginning of the movie.
4.9 liter V8, he said. 0 to 60, and I'm about to find the fuck out.
He also buys the place he works for with a fuck ton of gold that he just has, and then sets up a fuck ton of fairly improbable booby traps. His father's retirement home is also invaded, and we think that they're going to gank the old man, but David is a fucking badass. He has a fucking shotgun and kills the fuck out of his would-be assassins. Hutch then goes and burns down the Op Shack and Yulian's art collection, and then he goes to dinner and a show. He watches Yulian dance and sing.
Enjoying the meal?
No. I came for the show.
He then wipes his mouth and reveals that he has a fucking claymore at the table, which is attached to him by a string around his finger. Hutch offers Yulian an out. Let it all go. Leave him and his family alone, and Hutch won't go nuclear. But of course, Yulian can't agree to this. Hutch destroyed his Hang in There Kitty posters. So Hutch leads them back to the business that he just bought and is pinned down outside before the mysterious voice comes out and starts shooting people. And so does his father. Henry, played by RZA, gives him enough cover to get inside. We're at the title fight, folks. Doc Brown, RZA, and Better Call Saul against a slew of nameless enemies. We get some good choreography, not as good as John Wick, but you know. And they fight. Somehow, Saul knows exactly where everyone would be standing when he trips the traps, and he manages to perfectly kill everyone. Which seems a little unlikely. Eventually, things wind down, and after every Russian but Yulian is killed, the boys finally run out of bullets. Presumably, the video game unlimited ammo pickup that they had had finally ran out. Or maybe Doc Brown went back in time to make sure that they would have just enough ammo for this fight. I'd make a joke about RZA, but I don't know of anything else that he's ever been in, so... Hutch, desperate, duct tapes the Claymore mine to a fucking plexiglass shield, rushes forward, and triggers it just in front of Yulian. Both go flying, but I lied about Hutch not being immortal previously, because he somehow fucking survives that. 3 months later, they bait a sequel as Hutch and Becca, who is a bigger character than I make her out to be in this review, but not by enough for me to go back and edit it in, are shopping for a new house. They ask if there's a basement, presumably where Hutch can commit more arson. She's apparently just okay with this, and the murdery nature of her husband. Apparently it's hot, I guess. There's also an end credit scene where David and Henry are heading off to somewhere, showing that they didn't get caught by the police. Also, the framing device did close prior to this, where the detectives from the beginning of the movie get a call, and it's presumed that he's let go.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfucker!
I kill his fucking dog.
So this movie is literally just John Wick with more comedy. Both are set up in ridiculous settings. Both leads are nigh immortal killing machines that were just apparently the most competent people in the world at murder. They even have the same basic theme. Throughout John Wick, everyone asks if he's back in the game. The murder game, where he murders people who presumably have lives before he ends them like some kind of Grim Reaper. And he struggles with this. He had theoretically left this life behind.
Suddenly one day, he asked to leave. It's over a woman, of course. So I made a deal with him. I gave him an impossible task. A job no one could have pulled off.
But his skills are sharp, and some part of him wants this, needs this. Hutch is much the same.
He had a wife. She came with 2 kids. They had another on the way. They had a dog. He was working 9 to 5. I am not a jealous guy. But in that moment, I wanted what Alan had.
He'd collected a family specifically so that he could see if he could have a normal life.
So I told my bosses I was out of the game. They were not happy to hear it. They didn't believe I could do it. I gave it my all. I really did.
To be happy. And he loves it. But he is also a violent psychopath who can barely keep his bloodlust under control. The theme of this is that these men cannot leave their violent pasts behind. Not that it will always haunt them, but that they will miss it and want to return. They have murder boners that lasagna just can't cure. And that's fucking bleak, ain't it? They're going to be trapped in a constant cycle of violence. But also, everything in both movies is just kind of otherworldly. John Wick lives in a world where pirate doubloons are traded for everything from hotel rooms to murder to body disposal. Presumably you can buy fucking ice cream with them. Nobody has Hutch, a government cleaner that is so efficient that they make fucking Dracula look like a slouch as they created oceans of blood. And also, both are kind of unassuming figures, especially Bob Odenkirk. He is just not an intimidating man, usually. But in this, I could believe that people are scared of him, just because he does sell the whole brutal badass. With that said, though, I think nobody does have a better grasp on something. John Wick knows that it's dumb, and it chooses to play it straight. Nobody knows that it's dumb, and chooses to acknowledge that the entire situation is a 45-year-old's power fantasy and plays into it. The emotional core of John Wick is the death of the dog that the titular character's dead wife gifted to him. The emotional core to Nobody is a kitty cat bracelet that we find halfway through the movie, revealing that all of this was an incredible overreaction.
Sneaky devil. Fucking kitty cat bracelet.
The writing of Nobody is just better. Nobody is a lot of fun. It's dumb, shut-your-off-brain media, which naturally means I didn't have much of a theme to talk about. But it's still worth a watch. I acknowledge that the choreography in Wick is much better, but at the same time, the writing is much more interesting in Nobody. Like I said, Wick doesn't have a Yulian. There's no one hamming it up that hard, except for maybe Defoe. The other thing is that where I thought that John Wick was a complete story at the end of the first movie, and I honestly didn't want a sequel to it, there are a lot more, which means the writing issues in the first movie that we kind of can look over eventually snowball. But my reaction was not the same with Nobody. I want a sequel, which seems like it's probably going to happen. I want to know more about this auditor, about his family and his father and his brother. A prequel might be really interesting. Anyway, that's all I have. Go away. Go watch Nobody. Or don't. But like this video, and comment about what you thought of the movie, or my comparison, or what you had for lunch, or what movie you want me to do next. Also, share this video. Hack into the FBI and send it to random agents as blackmail material for no reason, which is a reference to Nobody that I didn't establish earlier. Also, I started a Patreon in the hopes that one day I could have my own op shack that gets burnt up in a plot for revenge after I try to kill someone's family over something that I admittedly don't care all that much about. Help me out with that goal. Also, like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, read my book, do my laundry. Hold me. Please hold me. I'm so lonely. Anyway, this is Sean, the last person a movie wants to see on its doorstep, signing off.